Welcome to the Andrew Roman Show. What's up, everybody? This is another episode. We're in episode number 29. Now, man, it's getting intense. It's getting intense. Thank you so much for everyone that's already been with me the entire time. If this is your first time listening to this podcast, and you're like, what is this about? This is about having real conversations about real topics. Especially, I'm a young adult. I'm 21 years old. And we talk about school, we talk about work, we talk about faith, we talk about politics sometimes, we talk about what's going on in culture right now, and how does it look like to be a Christian now in the 21st century, right? How can we represent Christ correctly? And a lot of times we have fun. And with this episode, it's a special one because I've titled it 10 Books You Need. 10 Books You Need. And now, you might be thinking, gosh, I just clicked on this video just to see what it was, or I clicked on this podcast, but I'm not a reader. Okay, just stick with me because this is why I'm doing the podcast. The reason I'm not just putting out a list and just telling you what books is because I'm going to be sharing a little bit of some snippets about these books and why they are some of my favorite books. And so I am surrounded by books. If you can't tell, if you're just listening, but if you're watching the YouTube channel, I am surrounded by books right now. I was going through my small library. Okay, in comparison, I have a small library to a lot of people. I was just kind of going around, and I was like, look at that. I've kind of gained a little bit of somewhat of a library. So we'll be going through each of these 10 books, sharing little snippets why I love these books and why I think you need these books. So let's start. Before we get to the books, I always want to start with my mug. Hey, if you watched this last episode with my brother Chris, we never introduced a new mug because we couldn't waste any time, man. We had to go into the conversation. Hey, by the way, let me know if there's a part of an episode that you really, really like. Give me a shout or something, because I always like to know what and get feedback from people and how the episodes are doing. And make sure, if you haven't already, subscribe on the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review. If it's a 4-star, don't even leave us a review, man. If it's a 3-star, don't even think about it. But if it's a 5-star, go right ahead. 5-star on Apple Podcast, and I'd love to hear a little bit more of your perspective and your feedback. Well, today I have a special mug. This is a little bit of a different mug than I usually have. It's called Revival in a Cup. It's a long one. Let me describe it to you. It is a black finish. It is one of those no-shine black finishes. Very minimalistic mug from Bethel Church. Love it. From, where is it? Redding, right? Redding, California. And it says Revival in a Cup. And the reason I brought this cup with me today is because, have you heard of what's going on with Bethel? Bethel is doing something insane. And I say Bethel, right? But it's not necessarily Bethel Church, I don't think. It's his name is Sean. Oh gosh, I'm going to butcher his name. Fucht. I don't know, Feucht. I'm pretty sure that's how you spell it. Look him up on Instagram. This is amazing. They're actually holding revivals all across the nation. They had one in Oregon not too long ago. They've had one in Seattle, and they're going to have one in LA. They've had one in Dallas, and this is a time for all Christians to come together and worship together. It's been awesome for what I can tell. I haven't been into one, but it really motivated me. I honestly had no idea before this episode. One of my friends was telling me about it, and it was just awesome seeing the passion of these fellow believers and worshiping Jesus, and in the midst of them trying to shut them down was Antifa, was a Satanist church, and the whole thing, they were trying to shut them down, even disconnecting their power, but nothing can stop the power of worship with Jesus. So I thought that was super cool. Well, I wanna go straight into this because I gotta tell you, I'm surrounded by 10 books right now, and this is as much surprising as it maybe is to you. I was not a reader, and I've told you this before. I was the guy who had about 10 books that I basically read the cover, and some of them I didn't even finish the cover because it was just too long. And like this one, over 5 million sold, updated and expanded the case for Christ, journalist personal investigation. I would have stopped right there. And I was like, I don't know, it's too long for me. But my dad got me into the habit of reading, and you got to start with small goals. I mean, now I try to read 2 a month. It's kind of going somewhat. Like this year I got 10. I got 10 books, which is, I'm behind. I'm like behind 6 books, okay? So I'm getting there. But I don't want to waste any more time. I'm going to share a little bit about each of these books, and I've kind of separated them into different categories. Over here, I'm going to start, you've heard me talk about this book before. This is called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor E. Frankl. Fantastic book. I'm going to rate it a 10 out of also readableness. Like, is it easy to read? If you're just getting going into reading, this is a fantastic one because the book is divided into two sections. One is Victor's personal testimony and personal story of surviving the Holocaust. I mean, you can't put this book down. I finished it in about a day. I think it was 2 days. I could not put this book down. What I absolutely love about this book is Man's Search for Meaning. I've actually dedicated a whole two episodes to this book called Your Life, Your Responsibility in the Search for Meaning. You can watch them. There were some of the first episodes in this podcast. But what I absolutely love about this book is it allows you to get your life into perspective, and it allows you to help you find ways to find meaning. And it tells you just his story of the Holocaust, which really just makes me grateful of my own life, and at the same time it puts my troubles into perspective, right? I might think I'm going through the worst thing in the world, but when I read his story, I'm like, dude, I'm not going through anything, and if he could make it out, I can definitely make it out. So this little section of books, I think I picked two specifically, are kind of more in a general genre, so they're not historical. Because in Man's Search for Meaning, he talks about his personal testimony, but also his little therapy of psychiatry. He's a psychiatrist, and how people are ultimately searching for meaning, not really money, not really power, not really sex, but meaning. And I encourage you to listen to that episode that I dedicated 2 episodes actually for it. Then I got another book over here. This is called The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. Okay, listen up. Out of all of these, you probably have to start with this one. This is an absolutely fantastic book. They actually made it into a movie. Go watch the movie and then read the book, because the book is a story about this. He was a news journalist, I believe. Yeah, news journalist, and he was in charge of the section of homicides. And it's his story from atheist to Christian, and not like for people who say, oh, being a Christian is all about like blind faith and believing fairy tales. I mean, this guy went into a whole investigation. He made a case for believing in Christ. So the book is divided into rebuttal evidence, scientific evidence, corroboration evidence, evidence of appearances, the profile evidence. I mean, this is pure evidence for the Christian faith. So you definitely want to read this. If you're not much of a reader, I would start with this one. It looks chubby, right? The book. But it's just because of the certain style that it is. But it's actually, it's well worth to get into. So if you haven't already, watch the movie Case for Christ, but also read the book Case for Christ. And this is for everyone. I encourage all believers. If you are a Christian, you must read this book, because this book will make you even more confident and will strengthen your faith as a believer, because it will give you evidences. And it says a journalist's personal investigation of the evidence for Jesus. So you don't want to miss this book whatsoever. In the same category of about what it's called apologetics, which is a defense of the faith. Apologetics doesn't mean apologizing, by the way. It's just a word called apologia, which is a Greek word for giving a defense for. So whenever Peter in one of his letters says that we should all be ready to give a defense for the Christian faith, he says we should all be ready to give an apologia. And I want to point this out, because a lot of Christians are like, man, I don't need to read all this stuff. I'm good. Well, I always find it interesting that the Bible doesn't say that we should always be ready to give an answer or a response, because I think a lot of Christians, when someone asks them about their faith or tries to criticize their faith or question their faith, a lot of Christians maybe have an answer, but I don't think a lot of Christians have a defense of the Christian faith. And I think that's a little bit different, because you can say God is good, and your personal testimony is extremely, extremely powerful. And this is one of the biggest evidences of God in the transformation that he's brought to your life. But at the same time, there are a lot of people who have intellectual barriers to Christianity, which can be solved and can be brought down if only we had a defense. So I really encourage you to get going with this book. The Case for Christ is absolutely fantastic. But one of the things, it's very specific to Jesus. And what I mean by that is great, but that's why I'm recommending this third book called I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. This is amazing. I absolutely love this book because I know I always say, this is amazing. This is amazing. But in all seriousness, it's I got to tell you, it's a little bit of a read. It's not a quick read. I mean, this thing's almost 400 pages long, so it's not, but it's well worth it because what it does is it goes through it kind of takes you from one logical point from the existence of God to the person of Jesus, one step at a time. It's literally, if you have an atheist friend, give him this book, see what he thinks about it, because it's so good. I mean, it starts, which by the way, I got it signed by the author. Boom. That's right. Frank Turek signed this book. I love this because, some of the chapters, it's talking about this, like, can we handle the truth, right? Why should anyone believe anything at all? Like, why be a Christian? Why not just be like, I don't really believe in anything, and that's good enough? Or what was the beginning? Is there a design in the universe? And then it talks about Mother Teresa versus Hitler, talking about morality. And then what did Jesus teach about the Bible? Who is Jesus? God or just a great moral teacher? Did Jesus really rise from the dead? Do we have eyewitness testimony about Jesus? Top 10 reasons we know the New Testament writers told the truth. I mean, this is, if you are a Christian and you are not confident about your faith, there are a lot of resources out here to help you. And again, this is not like read the book and you're totally convinced. You have to go through the evidence yourself and then believe it, because at the end of the day, it's whether you will believe the evidence or not, because I was not there 2,000 years ago, but there's enough evidence for me to believe that is reasonable for me to believe in the Bible and in the evidence for Jesus. So Case for Christ, a fantastic book to learn more about Jesus. And if you're questioning Jesus, read that one. If you're kind of questioning your faith in just Christianity in general, or you want to learn more to share your faith, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist by Frank Turek and Norman Geisler, which may he rest in peace, Mr. Geisler. And in the same category, we're going up a notch. Okay, look. I'm a little bit of an apologetics nerd. I freaking love apologetics. I love defending the Christian faith. I mean, everybody that knows me says if you want to have Andrew talk forever, which he usually does in a regular basis, but if you just want him to get him talk about apologetics and defense of the Christian faith, I absolutely love that. So we start with level one. Level one was The Case for Christ. The Case for Christ, okay, by Lee Strobel. That's like level one reading. Okay, you want to go a little deeper? Level 2, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist by Norman Geisler and Frank Turek. Level 3, baby. There is even a level 3. This is Reasonable Faith by William Lane Craig. Okay, let's stop right there. This is one of the, I would say, the books that has made almost the most difference in my belief in like apologetics and my confidence in the Christian faith. I mean, this thing is literally no joke. It's like 400 pages of tiny letters, okay? Again, you read level 1, read Case for Christ, because it's very well written. But this is, Reasonable Faith is more of a research book, and it breaks down the existence of God, argument by argument. What it looks like, it looks at the evidence, then it looks at the arguments against Christianity, and then it looks at the rebuttals to those arguments. So if you consider yourself a little bit of an intellectual and you have some intellectual questions about Christianity, Reasonable Faith is the book to go. Dr. William Lane Craig. By the way, all these authors, you can look them up on YouTube. They have fantastic preachings. Frank Turek has a great one. I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. It's also his ministry. I actually went to attend one of his events in person. It was really fantastic because he did a Q&A session in person, and it was awesome seeing how he was responding to some critics and to some questions that people had. So when it comes to the apologetics and the defense of the faith in general, these are the 3 books I genuinely recommend, that they're great reads. And at the end of the day, look, you might be thinking, dude, why I gotta read this? Okay, one, they're great. If you're not much of a reader, then watch YouTube, right? Watch great YouTube videos. But at the end of the day, you will never really know the author's intention unless you read the book. This happens to anyone, right? I mean, public speaking, if you're really, really good, you'll do great. But at the same time, you either don't have enough time or you didn't phrase things right. But whenever you write a book, you put exactly what you intend to put in the book. It's not a mistake unless you never edited it right. Which, by the way, that's a great thing of why we should read the Word of God. A lot of people are like, I don't know about the Word of God. I just hear God on my own and I go to church. Well, the best way to know the author's intentions is by reading his book. All right, that's just a side nugget. So these 3 books, fantastic. Man's Search for Meaning, more of a general, again, not a Christian author. He's secular Jew from what I understood. Rest in peace. And I got 2 other books I want to share with you. We are now to number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Book number 5 is Seeking Allah and Finding Jesus. Have you ever wondered what the difference of Islam and Christianity is? I mean, Islam is the second world largest religion. It's gaining a lot of followers, and a lot of followers even in America. Again, you don't have to be in the Middle East to be a Muslim, and especially in the Black community, there's great following. So have you ever wondered, okay, what is the true difference between Islam and Christianity? Is there really a difference, or is Islam a little bit better, right? You have great figures like Malcolm X that was a Muslim himself, and I actually think some of the leaders of the BLM organization are actually Muslims themselves, which just begs the question, what is the difference between Christianity and Islam? Is one right, or is the other one wrong? Well, what I absolutely love about this book is by the author Nabil Qureshi, who has sadly, very tragically passed away from cancer some years ago. But this is his personal story. The subtitle is A Devout Muslim Encounters Christianity. And again, the title, for those who weren't paying attention, is Seeking Allah, Finding Jesus. What I absolutely love about this book, it is a mixture of his personal, it goes through very specific details and arguments and points that he makes of what convinced him that Christianity was true. Now, the reason I really like this book is because it's his personal story. You really can't put this book down because it's not just facts or like a research analysis or anything. No, it's his personal story. And for me, what I absolutely loved about the book is that it gave me a perspective and a little bit of a glimpse at what it looks like for someone from the Middle East to accept Jesus and the pressures of their family. Here, we're pretty like open-minded and free thinker of like, okay, my son is a Jew and you can be whoever you want, son. But in the Middle East, there's much of it's a very collectivistic society. So you follow your parents' traditions and religion. If you don't, I mean, in certain countries they will kill you. And this kind of gave me great insight. And maybe if you're listening and maybe you are Muslim, well, I just want to encourage you, read this. Look, I'm not saying that you will have the same journey as him, although maybe I do think that. But I really encourage you to think that it's extremely genuine, it's extremely compassionate, and it's his story of how he encountered Christianity. And if you're more interested in the differences between Islam and Christianity, Nabil Qureshi came up with the following book, a sequel to this, called No God But One, Allah or Jesus. So it's also a great book. All right, let's keep going. We're running out of time. Hey, The Real Kosher Jesus. If you're interested, and I love this book because this is reaching out to our Jewish brothers. So remember, as a Christian, God still loves the Jewish person. Jesus was a Jew. And Michael L. Brown, he also, look him up, fantastic show that he has. And this is a whole book about how Jesus is one, obviously a genuine Jew, and kosher. So kosher is the Jewish laws of what is right and what is wrong in terms of eating or tradition. And so this is the real Jesus, the real kosher Jesus. And this is just if you're interested of like, okay, what is the Jewish perspective? Like, why don't Jews believe in Jesus? Why do Jews reject Jesus? And how can we reach Jews to accept Jesus as their Messiah? Well, the Real Kosher Jesus will take you there. All right, we're almost done, folks. Hey, these two are kind of, what are they? They're novels, but their novels are like autobiographies in historical narratives. This was one of the first books I ever read from that I can remember. It's called God's Double Agent, written by Bob Fu. This is a fantastic story because it talks about the life of Bob Fu, of how he was literally like God's double agent, and he was he lived in communist China, and right now he lives in the United States. But what I love about this book is just the passion, and it gave me passion to say, okay, God, if he can do this in communist China where it is illegal to be a Christian and he had to be kind of like a double agent, this man was put in prison, he was beaten for his faith, but also he saw such miracles and he saw God transform. I mean, he was such a bitter and angry young man that in college, he was actually creating a bomb to blow up the house of his professor, and his professor was in the house. But then God radically transformed his life into a life of love and spreading the gospel. So it's also a fantastic book. Hey, we're almost done. Last three. If you love history and you want a clear take of history that's not biased or it's not woke in the sense, but it's just actual history. Bill O'Reilly came out with a great series called the Killing series. This is called Killing Lincoln. I cried in this book. He also has one called Killing Jesus, and it's just kind of like it puts into like a narrative, a story of the steps that led up to the killing of Lincoln. But it also gives you such a great historical perspective of what was going on that day. And again, this is extremely factual. They do their research. It's not made up, and it's dramatized just for the story, but it's not made up. It's extremely connected to the facts. So if you're interested in history, take a look at that. Hey, we're down to my two last books that you must have. Intellectuals and Race by Thomas Sowell. I have talked about this book rather recently, especially in the day and age that we're talking about right now. Race is such a buzzword right now. So read Intellectuals and Race to get a better perspective of what a healthy perspective is on the race war that is going on right now. Thomas Sowell is a great intellectual, an economist that has written some other books that I am really, really excited to continue to read. Hey, we're down to the last one here. And this is a big puppy. Like, you gotta have this book. I haven't read this whole thing. I mean, this thing's like probably 800 pages. Yeah, like 700 pages. But this is more of a textbook for you to have called Evidence That Demands a Verdict. If you're going to college, I encourage you to bring this up, because this literally takes every single perspective from the resurrection to the Exodus, to the flood of Noah, to the Gospels, to the Gnostic Gospels, like the Gospel of Thomas, to the Pentateuch and the historical or the alleged contradictions in the Old Testament. It literally talks about all these things, and it shows you evidence that you can trust for your faith. So we just went through 10 books, and I gave you little glimpses of each book, because, man, if you're wondering where should I start, Man's Search for Meaning is a great way. Seeking Allah, Finding Jesus is a very compelling story. I mean, you got Case for Christ, you got God's Double Agent. Yo, I got a bunch of more books that I've read. If there's a certain category, like, for example, you're like, man, I want to learn more about apologetics, or I want to learn more about some historical books, or some books like Intellectuals and Race, and some more intellectual books or something like that. If you're interested in that, hey, shoot me a DM, shoot me an email, and I can give you some book suggestions. And if you have some book suggestions as well, make sure to let me know. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. It's a little bit of a different one. And don't take a Spark Notes or anything like that. A lot of these authors, you can look them up on Google and on YouTube. But I encourage you, take at least one book out of this list, buy on Amazon, get that free shipping, Prime shipping, and then get reading, and then tell me what you thought of the book. Hey, we'll see you on the next episode of The Andrew Roman Show.